Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Shibby and I am an amateur color caster, interviewer, content creator, podcaster, you name it. I'm probably doing something in that space. And we are actually going to go ahead and make an LCS 2024 Spring tier list. And this is not going to be your typical tier list. I think it's cool that there are a lot of people that are putting teams in A tier, D tier, F tier, so on and so forth. But I thought it'd be a cool idea to come and revisit this sometime, but also to create a tier list essentially where I believe all 8 LCS teams will end up at the end of the regular season. So who will end up first, who will end up 6th, 8th, so on and so forth. I think it'd be really cool to come visit this after the 2024 spring season has ended, at least the regular season. Playoffs I'm not including. I think a lot of stuff can happen in playoffs that is super crazy and different things can happen. But I just thought it would be really cool to kind of see where I believe each of these teams will end up at the end of the regular season. And here we are at the tier list maker. For those that are uninformed, the LCS has been cut down to 8 teams. I'm not going to go really into the in-depth reasons as to why, but 2 teams have been removed from the LCS or have left the LCS. Evil Geniuses and Golden Guardians of last year will not be participating in the 2024 spring LCS season. So we're down to 8 teams. There are a lot of good videos about it. There's a lot of good stuff about it. There's an interview with John Needham by Travis Gafford that goes into why and what happened. There's a lot of good podcasts like Summoning Insight, Power Spike. I think David Shynook as well talks about it, I think on his TikTok and his YouTube. There's so much content out there that you guys can kind of piece together and understand why we're at 8 teams and how we got to this point. But I think the main focus I want to do is to give you guys my opinion and my insight on where I think some of these teams will end up at the end of the regular season. I just want to stress that again. It is the end of the regular season. So this doesn't include the playoffs or anything like that. Just where I think these teams will end up after the regular season here. So I think the easy thing to do right now is I'm going to be using sheepesports.com's transfers website. Sheep Esports, really cool website they made. They're on Twitter. It's by all those like journalists or leakers, however you want to classify them as, like LEC Wooloo, the Pokemon guys. They all have like a collective organization called Sheep Esports. I think it's really cool. This is where I'll be basing my roster information on and everything like that. They've been pretty good, almost like 100% on all the LCS stuff. So that's where we'll start. And I think the easy teams, I'm not going to go in order. I'm just going to go in on who I want to talk about. The easy team to go through, I think the first one, I think everybody pretty much has them right now. Cloud9 at first. Yeah, I don't think it's any secret as to why most people put them in like S tier or whatever like that. I think they're going to end up first by the end of the regular season, at least in spring as well. Cloud9, I mean, typically does very, very good in spring. They've also got the king of spring with them, Vulcan, funnily enough. So yeah, this roster had some changes. I think obviously the biggest change is that they are moving on from Jimenez, and instead they have gotten the superstar that was on the Evil Geniuses roster, Mr. Jojo Pyun. And so this roster is Fudge, Blabber, Jojo Pyun, Berserker, and instead of Sven, we now have Vulcan as well. Previously on FlyQuest, before that was also on EG with Jojo a couple of years ago. So I think this roster is crazy. A lot of people are calling it a super team. A lot of these are people are calling this like one of the best rosters the LCS has assembled. I think this could be one of Cloud9's best rosters in recent years. Rightfully so, right? You've got Jojo Pyun, superstar mid laner, carry orientated, can like hard carry and solo carry games. We saw that last split on EG, where he was just like 1v9ing people. A lot of the main win conditions playing against EG last year was just like to shut down Jojo and force the rest of his team to put work in. But now that we have him on Cloud9, this is also probably Blabber's most talented mid laner. I will say that. The question mark is whether Jojo Pyun will actually be able to enable Blabber and play with Blabber's style. I think the best individual that did that, or at least one of the two, was Niski when Blabber was playing with Niski. I think Niski works so well with junglers, the way he's able to enable them. the way he's able to, allow junglers to carry and play through them and sack waves and pick champions that are not necessarily good for his lane, but helps out his jungler, stuff like that, right? Blabber is now playing with a hard carry mid laner, more aggressive, I would argue, and a lot more skilled than Jimenez. And the question mark for me is who on this team is going to be willing to take a backseat, right? Because you've got Blabber, you've got Jojo, you've got Berserker, and you've also got Fudge, who, also likes to play carry matchup, who also likes to play counter matchups, right? He has a big Fiora phase, has played a lot of carry matchups. Not that he's unable to play tanks or anything like that. I don't think anybody's going to doubt that Fudge can play more team fight orientated tanks and like more selfless picks. But like, yeah, you have Jojo Pure now, who is arguably gonna want to be the carry. You have Blabber, who has played a heavy carry role before. He can play the tank jungler. It's not that he can't. We saw a lot of it last year. But my question is, who's gonna take a back seat? Is Cloud9 gonna experiment with, hey, this week we're gonna play for top counter pick. In the next couple weeks, we want to play for mid jungle, right? We want to really heavily emphasize a strong mid jungle duo. The week after that, we want to make sure Berserker and Vulcan can get favorited 2v2 matchups. There's one end of the spectrum that says, oh man, this team could potentially carry through every role. Every role is a threat. Fudge is a threat. Blabber's a threat. Jojo Pune's a threat. Berserker, so on and so forth. The other end of the spectrum is there are too many cooks in the kitchen, and there's too many people that want to play carry roles that we've seen typically. I'm not going to call this necessarily a super team, but teams that have a lot of carry orientated players, that everybody wants to carry, everybody wants to like hands check and skills check people, and that can lead to teams kind of collapsing. Although I do think that Cloud9, with their systems in place and stuff like that and their coaching staff, I think they'll do a pretty good job of reining some of the personalities and at least giving everybody a chance to carry. And the idea is that once Cloud9, the team, has figured out how they want to play their game, like Fudge, Berserker, Jojo, Blabber, they're all humble enough, or they're all understanding like, hey, this is how we win games. This is the best way to win the LCS. Let's play through this way, whatever that may be. So I'm very interested in this roster and to see kind of how it unfolds and who actually gets a lot of this, the star power, or not star power, but the carry power and counter pick and all that kind of stuff. For my second place team, I'm going to go with something I think a little bit contentious. I think it can be argued. I really like this team. I'm very excited for this team. For my second place team, or who I think is going to end second in the regular season, I'm actually going to go with FlyQuest. I know a lot of people have been putting NRG. I think I've seen some people put Team Liquid potentially. I'm going to go FlyQuest for my second place team. Why? I love this FlyQuest roster. So for people I don't know, FlyQuest's roster last year: Impact, Spica, Vikla, Prince, Vulcan. Super strong roster, right? Was pretty damn good in the spring, collapsed in the summer. Everybody knows what happened. They have pretty much retooled their whole roster. They are changing out all 5 players. So we've got Bwipo in the top lane, Inspired in the jungle, Jensen in mid, and we've got Masu and Busio in the bot lane. Obviously, Bwipo and Inspired had about a year off from competitive play. Inspired played for EG, was previously on Rogue. Bwipo was on the TL roster, the crazy hyped TL roster that was there not too long ago. Also, obviously, a Fnatic and stuff like that. He played jungle, and obviously he's mainly a top lane player. Jensen, I believe, was on Dignitas. You know who Jensen is. If you don't know who he is, just look him up. He's pretty well known. Cloud9, Team Liquid. He's stacked championships. Probably the best international performer in the LCS history. Masu and Busio. So Masu is one of the highest touted prospects coming from the tier 2 scene or the challenger scene, right? Masu, the article here, he was on FlyQuest Challengers. He is crazy as an AD carry. If you have not been watching the FlyQuest Challengers, or if you haven't been watching the Academy or Tier 2 scene, go back and watch this player. He is a fucking monster of a player. I'm super hyped about him. I really like Masu from what I got to see of him in the tier 2. I know everybody that covered that broadcast is really high on Masu. He's insane. Everybody was kind of, vying for him to be picked up and to be promoted. And I'm really happy that he's being promoted internally within the system. Has pretty big shoes to fill with Prince, but I think Masu's it. I think he's really damn good. Busio as well, another individual that was on the 100 Thieves roster last year, played with Double Lift, has now moved on to FlyQuest. I think he's pretty good as a support. I think he does have, you could argue, maybe some champion pool issues and stuff like that. But I think him and Masu as a bot lane are going to work really, really well. I think Busio is a player that kind of knows what he wants to do. And from talking with him and interviewing with him and talking to players like Double Lift who have played with him, he's like a very hard worker, but he's also very open to trying new picks, trying new strategies, so on and so forth. And I think that's going to be really important because for FlyQuest's roster, you've got a very young bot lane core with Masu and Busio, but you've got Bwipo and Inspired, right? Bwipo and Inspired, two other players that tend to, I would say, expand their champion pools or will try out new picks or look for angles on how to win certain lanes, look for those micro edges, so on and so forth. I think those two players matched up with Masu and Busio will actually create a really cool identity for this team. And I expect, assuming these players stick to kind of their guns and stick to who they are, that this team is going to pull out some wacky picks and some interesting strategies. The big question mark is around Jensen, and I think Jensen's role in this team is to not be a carry. I think that is very clearly defined. You've got a very strong top side with Bwipo and Inspired. Bwipo loves these counter matchups, loves carry matchups. Inspired loves playing for himself. He loves playing these carry matchups as well. And pairing him with someone like Jensen, who I think, in my opinion, should end up transitioning into more of a supportive style mid lane, a more facilitator style mid lane. If he can end up making that jump and being that kind of just like stable, steady, I'm going to play for my team, I'm going to do this, I'm going to sack waves, I'm going to roam, I'm going to 2v2 with my jungler, whatever, right? If he can do that and he can just kind of sit in that mid lane, not lose heavily, and just help the rest of his team out, this FlyQuest roster could fucking do damage. And I think they can easily end up second at the end of the regular season. Like I said, big question marks around Masu, Busio. I'm very hyped on this bottom lane, and I also really like this top side. I think Bwipo and Inspired are two players that are made for each other, man. I think they can do a lot of damage. Bwipo and Inspired could end up being the best top jungle duo in the league. And I don't even think that's like a very contentious thing to say. So yeah, FlyQuest is second. I'm in love with this roster. I think it's really good. Who's going to end up being third? That's where NRG goes. NRG, obviously the LCS winners, LCS Summer 23 LCS Summer winners. They made it super far in Worlds. Ended up, getting bounced out by the second place team that is Weibo Gaming. If we look at NRG, so far they haven't made any really crazy roster moves other than Huhi is now on NRG instead of Ignar. I think that's an upgrade. They're pretty much running back the same four individuals. I think Huhi is more versatile. Ignar, if you catch Ignar in an engage heavy meta, that's your guy, right? He's probably one of the best engaged players in the world. Okay. One of the best engaged players within like Europe and North America. The world might have been a little bit too much, but he is a damn good engaged player. And we kind of ran into a meta where like Alistar, Rel, all this stuff was really damn good. Huhi can, in my opinion, play both sides of the coin. He's pretty damn good on enchanters. We've seen him play enchanters. He's also pretty good on certain engaged heroes or champions. I think this is an upgrade, and I think FBI Huhi as a bot lane is going to go crazy. FBI, one of the most, I think, underrated AD carries within the LCS. The dude's resume is crazy. Multiple, like he has Worlds appearances. He's got multiple LCS titles now. Palafox contracts, really good mid jungle duo. I think these guys really play well with each other. And I think Dokla, depending on how the top lane changes end up happening in 2024, can potentially thrive. I think his ability to kind of pick up certain champions and pick up certain matchups is really cool, right? I mean, talk about the Jax, the most famous one where he wasn't playing a lot of Jax or whatever, and then he just like randomly picked it up and started stomping with it. Really cool. But yeah, I think this the floor is third for NRG. I think they can easily make first. I think they can easily do second. But I really like FlyQuest's roster. Masu Busio, like I said, all those guys, I think they can do it. And I think NRG being at third isn't crazy. I think they'll come in at a very good level because they made the least amount of changes. I think Hui is a very plug and play kind of support anyways. And him and FBI should be fine. So I think they'll come into spring, at least the start, very strong. I think their level is going to be really good. But I think as rosters gel, as teams get better, I just feel like Cloud9 and FlyQuest are going to do really, really good. Fourth place. Fourth place is I think the difference, right? I think it's very, very interesting to see who people have put at fourth. I know a lot of people have put Team Liquid. I kind of want to put Shopify, but I think Team Liquid's roster is just really, really good. So if people don't know Team Liquid, they've changed out Summit and Pioshik. They have Impact and Umpty, so another, I guess, Korean top and jungle, although Impact at this point, NA resident, so on and so forth. They're moving APA into mid lane, like they're keeping him through from last split. Obviously, came in halfway through the split, qualified them for Worlds, was really, really good. I'm glad they kept APA. Really cool. I think he's super versatile. I think the memes about him being a Ziggs player is just so stupid. This guy is just, I think he's really good. I think he will have another split, a full split to really develop. And I think he showed a lot in just his limited time last split. Yon and Core JJ, solid bot lane. I think they were really good in the beginning. I think they have really, really good 2v2 potential. I want to see how Yon develops as an AE carry. But I think the main thing and why I think this team will end up fourth is just Impact brings a certain floor to your team, right? Like, you know what you're getting with Impact. You are getting a tank player that can play weak side, that can does whatever the team needs. And I think that's what this roster needs. I think Summit, completely different player. I would argue opposite side of the spectrum, but now you can really focus on like APA and Yon being your core carries. And I think they can do it. I think they can really do a lot of the heavy lifting. Umpty is going to be, Umpty is going to be very interesting. I like that there's like a Korean top in jungle. I think you always want to, when you have Korean imports, you always want to pair them with another Korean. Will be interesting to see how APA is in this roster because, you know, if they're all going to speak English, if they're going to speak Korean, right? I think Umpty and Impact as well could be a really, really strong jungle top duo if they want to be, but I feel like they're not going to really try to play towards top side. You probably want to play towards bot and mid here. Yeah, Umpty is the big question mark, but I think they can be fourth. I think the level that Impact brings to the floor that he brings your team to, I think is undeniable. He's always going to be good. He can be great, turns up in playoffs consistently. Like, this guy is just playoff Pete, if anybody's familiar with the NBA. I think the constant narrative that gets pushed is that Impact, he doesn't look that good. What's going to happen in playoffs? What's going to happen when we go against carried players? And what happens? He's fine. He's completely fine. He's stable. He's your rock. And that's where I'm going to put Team Liquid at. For my fifth place, I'm going to go ahead and put Shopify Rebellion. Now, I am huffing the B-Voy copium a little bit. The CB lol. I got boys in CB lol. I got some friends there. I think B-Voy is really good. Fake God as well. An individual that made his debut in the LCS a long time ago. Was seen as like not that good. Climbed his way back through Challengers or Academy. And is now, I think, deserving of an opportunity. We'll see how good he is at the LCS level at his second stint in the pro level or the LCS level. Boogie and Insanity. I love this mid jungle duo. I think Insanity is really good. I think he's willing, like I said, another one of those players that's willing to kind of bend the meta to his will a little bit. Has these kind of crazy picks. and is able to kind of warp the mid lane matchup around himself. I also think Boogie's pretty good. I think a lot of individuals last year had TSM as like a really bad team, and I think they ended up, in sixth, when I think a lot of people had TSM around the 7th, 8th mark, even like bottom 2. And I like their coaching staff. I like Revan. I like those guys. I think they know what to do with this team. I think B-Boy is an upgrade from Wild Turtle. I will say that here. And I think Zeyzal over Chime, we'll see. I think Zeyzal is another one of those players that was really good early on. If you guys remember Cloud9 Zeyzal, he's another individual that worked his way back through the challenger system, the amateur system. And I think based off what I've been hearing, based off what I've seen, a lot of people talking to, Zeyzal 100% deserves a shot. And I think, he's probably a more complete player now than he was maybe in C9. And so there are two. I like the story of Shopify, right? Fake God and Zeyzal, individuals that had seen LCS, had seen the pro scene, were casted out, were looked down upon. They clawed their way back. They had this really crazy, I think, redemption arc. These two guys coming back in, and if they can prove themselves, I think it's a really cool story. B-Boy is obviously the wild card, right? How is he going to perform? He was in CB Law. What's going to happen, right? But I think he is just going to be better than Wild Turtle. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Shopify, and I like their story. I like their mid jungle. I think Insanity is legit, and I think he can match up really well against a lot of these other mids. And so yeah, I think they're 5th. I mean, they could end up 3rd maybe, but I will say they end up 5th at the regular season. Now we get to the spicier part, the bottom 3 teams. Yeah, I'm going to put Dignitas 6th. And why am I putting Dignitas 6th? Well, if you aren't familiar with Dignitas, they've got a couple roster changes. They have kept Rich, the Faker of Hots, into the top lane. I think Rich had a really cool split, had a really cool year. Last year was pretty damn good, had his moments. Don't know if that was more Cassante, but he has been able to play other champions. They've replaced Jensen for Dove. And if you guys are unfamiliar with Dove, he is from KT. So just do this. KT Dove. He is an individual that played on Invictus Gaming. He played on KT in 2020. Sandbox, Live, like all this stuff. I think he's an upgrade from Jensen. At least probably mid lane pool wise. I think he can churn out some carry games. They obviously replaced Santorin as well. Exu, another individual, very deserving of a spot here. Really, really cool. He'll be the new starting jungler. He had a very small stint again, but I think this is going to be his first real year in the LCS. He's from the Dignitas Challengers internal promotion, and so I think he can be really good. Junglers are really hit or miss for me at the LCS level when promoting from challenges. I think a lot of people will talk about top lane as another role that's really hard to kind of be LCS ready. If you guys are familiar with the NFL, there are players that are like NFL ready, and there are certain players that aren't NFL ready, right? And that kind of means like, have they faced matchups? Are they big enough? Are they strong enough? In this case, in the LCS, you don't have to worry about your muscles or your, that kind of like your physicality and all that stuff. But I think in this case, have you played jungle at an LCS level? It's different, right? I think one of the players that we can really think about that dominated the tier 2 scene, that dominated the amateur scene, was Kenvi on Immortals. He was really, really good when he was playing in the amateur scene and in the tier 2 scene. Steps up to Immortals and is just a completely different player. Granted, some could argue that was the situation put around him, but also I just think he was never able to perform at the level that we thought he could, based off of his challengers and amateur performances. And so Exu has a very tall task ahead of him. A lot of junglers tend to sink when they get up to the LCS level. I don't think that's going to be him. I think he's got some solid laners around him in Rich and Dove to really kind of, hey, let's play through Rich this game. Let's play through Dove, so on and so forth. Also, Poom leaving or getting replaced by Isles. Really interesting to see. Isles was out of the competitive scene for a little bit, has worked his way back one way or another. I liked Tomo. I think he was another one of the bright spots of that Dignitas roster last year. I think he can carry. Pretty mild-mannered dude from when I interviewed him. Really tall as well. But I think he's irrelevant, I know. But I think he actually had some really solid performances. I think this Dignitas roster is actually a little bit slept on. But I think it's really going to hinge on how Exu steps up to the LCS level and whether this player is LCS ready. Because like I said, jungling in the LCS versus jungling in the Tier 2 League is probably one of the biggest jumps and changes when it's happening, right? I think along with top lane as well. But I think jungle is really crazy. But I like this roster. I'm going to put them 6th. Who do I put 7th and who do I put 8th? I think it's pretty easy. I'm not sold on the Immortals roster. I'm not sold on the Immortals roster. And if we look at where they are, sorry. So they've almost done a complete change. They've only kept one player from the previous year coming into this year. They have replaced Solo for Castle, who played on KT Challengers. They've replaced Kenvi, who we talked about, for Armeo. Was really good. I think a player that has a solid level, you know what you're getting with him. They have replaced Bolulu with Mask, another individual that played on KT Challengers. Both Castle and Mask played together on IMT, by the way. If that can convince you of anything. It doesn't. IMT Mask. Okay. Immortals Mask. Jesus. What the hell? Okay. We will do this. Both of these guys played together. Let's see their recent results. We've got Castle. We've got Castle. Where is Mask? Immortals, Mask, LCS. There we go. Yeah, they played on KT Challengers together around 2022. So it's been a bit. Like I said, Noah as well was on that roster. Has had success in Fnatic. So these are two Korean solo laners that have played together previously that are being imported to Immortals. I'm not sold on them necessarily. I watched some of their games, or I tried to watch some of their games when they played in 2022 in the CL, LCK CL. They're like a mix-up. They're a toss-up. I don't know. I think they can be good. I don't know what level they're going to come in at the LCS. I mean, they could maybe end up like 5th or 6th, but I'm not sold. Also, you have somebody like Ole who's been very far removed from competitive, although he was in the Korean Hyperbolic Time Chamber playing a ton of Korean solo queue, right? I think he hit really high rank previously. He was just really, really grinding it out. I wish I could find one of his posts where he like hit Challenger. Yeah, look. Plus 1500, yeah. He hit rank 1. Sorry, I apologize. He hit rank 1 in Korea. Grinded it out in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. I think he's deserving. I think if you want to take a chance on a player like that, that's fine. Tactical Ole could be a really good bot lane. I want to see how Ole has progressed his game. I want to see if he's more of a complete player. I want to see if he can kind of play anything. I want to see if this guy can bring up really weird counter picks, right? I want to see if Ole is willing to like not necessarily reinvent the meta, but like play some interesting stuff, right? Like go crazy with it. Not saying go be Carrier and go try to play all this random stuff in there and define the meta, but you know, work with tactical, work with these guys. I think 3 Koreans on Immortals, Castle, Mask, Ole, that's really cool. I think that's a really smart strategy. A lot of teams that are importing Korean players, like surround them with other Korean individuals. Yeah, it'll be really interesting. I think Tactical can be a carry player. I think he's shown that he can. Obviously has some glaring weaknesses sometimes where he kind of just ints a little bit, will die randomly. But I am really interested to see how Castle and Mask work with this team and how they work with Armeo specifically. How are they going to play, right? Is this going to be a situation where Castle and Mask want to be the carry individuals and Tactical and Ole will have to take a back seat? They'll have to play weak side, so on and so forth. We'll see. Yeah, I think they'll end up 7th. And that leaves the last team here. I think a lot of people have been putting them in D tier, so on and so forth. I'm sorry, David. They're going to go 8th. I love this team. And I'd love to be proven wrong. I would 100% love to be proven wrong here. I think a lot of the major reason as to why some people have kind of the conniption on why 100 Thieves is rated so low is that River is like a really strong carry jungler. He was on Dignitas. He was like one of the sole reasons why this team won. Why that team, sorry, won so many games. I think if you look at it on paper, you have 3 individuals on this team, Sniper, Quid, and Ayla, who have virtually no LCS experience, right? If you recall, Quid played like half a split, or he didn't really have a full split to develop. This is going to be, in my opinion, his actual true rookie year in the LCS in 2024. Meech as well, someone that played on that Disguised Toast roster that ended up winning the NECL Summer Champions. He could be really good. I think he's got his work cut out for him. Obviously replacing very big shoes in double lift. But you have Sniper or General Sniper, Quid, and Meech. 3 individuals who have virtually 0 LCS experience, right? People have touted that top lane is one of the harder roles to kind of land on your feet at the pro level, right? Like I've talked about, are you LCS ready? And so will be interesting to see how this team lands. River is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting. I think Ayla is very good. I think he's a solid support. And I think pairing Ayla up with a young AD carry, a rookie AD carry like Meech, that's actually a solid pairing. I think Ayla will be able to guide him and like, hey, this is how you play these 2v2s. This is how you play these lane matchups. This is your job here. This is what you need to do. I think I think Ayla is really, really smart about the game. From what I've talked to him, I think, you know, he's a very good team kind of player. I think Ayla is very smart for this roster. You've got River and Ayla kind of corralling the 100 Thieves rookies, right? You've got these guys that will need to kind of impart. How do we rotate around the map? How do we play with leads? How do we do this? How do we do that? I think it's going to be rough. I think this roster, at least in the spring, will end up 8th, if not 7th. If they end up 6th and get bounced off in the playoffs, I'm not sure of the playoff format at the moment. I'm just going to assume that since we have an 8 teams in the LCS, it's going to be a 16 playoff bracket. The 6th spot is going to be the last seed. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to happen. If they get 6th and get 3-0'd, I think everybody ranking them around like the D tier or whatever, or F tier is appropriate. I would love to be proven wrong. I'll gladly. I'd be super happy to see this 100 Thieves roster like compete, end up 5th, end up 4th. I think it's really cool that you have essentially 3 players on their rookie season. Yes, I'm counting Quid. He's going to be on his rookie season. Last split, he came in halfway. I think it was a fucked situation. I don't think it's fair to judge him necessarily on that. I don't think it's not fair to not judge him. I just don't think it's fair to call that his rookie season. I think Quid having some time in the offseason to develop, having some time, especially with River as well. Both of these guys are Korean. The Korean mid-jungle duo can put in some work potentially. But I think they're going to end up 8th in the regular season. And it's going to be because they're not going to come in at a very strong level. And I think they might drop too many games in the beginning. And I think that's where I put them. So this is the full tier list in its entirety. Cloud9, I believe, will end up 1st at the end of the regular season. FlyQuest 2nd, NRG 3rd, Team Liquid 4th, Shopify 5th, Dignitas 6th, Immortals 7th, and 100 Thieves 8th. And yeah, I think this is a pretty solid list. I think I gave my reasoning pretty well on some of the stuff. I can obviously extrapolate more when needed. Hopefully, at least, if anything, this causes some discussion. This, makes other content creators do the tier list, stuff like that. Just to remind everybody, this is where I believe these teams will end up at the end of the regular season, right? So this is not including playoffs. This is not who I think will win the championship, so on and so forth. This is just regular season record. And I think it'll be really cool to revisit this remind me, hashtag 4 months or whatever. David, I know I'm already in your little stupid fucking list. Put me in there. Put me in your goddamn notes. I don't care. I'll be waiting. I'll probably make a video if they do end up 7th or 8th. Like I said, I think a lot of these teams have about one team, can be like one team higher or lower, but I think this is where I think they will stand. Right? And I think the contention picks are like 100 Thieves at 8th, and I think FlyQuest at 2nd. I think FlyQuest is a really cool roster. Whippo inspired. Topside is just awesome. Huge Masu Busio. Masu is my goat. Hopefully he lives up to the hype and he lives up to how good he's gonna do. But yeah, that's it. Hey everyone, just popping in here to remind you that if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, as that always helps out. Don't forget to leave a comment down below sharing your thoughts. I try and respond to as many as possible. And last but not least, please hit that subscribe button and click on the notification bell so you guys know when my latest video is going to get uploaded ASAP. Once again, I appreciate every single one of you and hope you guys have a great rest of your day or night, and look forward to seeing you back here very, very soon.